Oh, this is no. This is easy no for me, and I will tell you why.
Welcome to On Deadline, the Washington Examiner's political game show. I'm Tiana Lowe Doescher.
And I'm Christian Datoc.
Each episode, we give our takes on the news of the week, and you get to vote on who you think won. Remember to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. We start off the week above the fold. Christian, this Thanksgiving, what do you think is the most important story?
Well, it's not necessarily the biggest story, Tiana, but I'm certainly thankful that we've got all of this drama over at the DNC. Now, typically, after elections, both committees shrink their workforce, but the DNC is going from 650 staffers down to roughly 200. It's a pretty sizable termination. That being said, there's a lot of loser talk from these people who got axed. They're saying, some of us got forced into these temporary positions. We would have liked to stay on full time. Elections have consequences, and we've talked about it here from this desk for weeks. If the Democrats want to be relevant,
Who are you?
not only in the upcoming elections, but down the line and become a party that can re-embrace working class voters, they have to make changes starting at the top. The DNC is the national organizing body, and I think it would offend a number of actual working class voters if these white-collar unionized jobs are saying, hey, we're no different than a steelworker or an auto manufacturer. This is a time for the DNC to look in the mirror.
I mean, I have to wonder, it isn't just in the Democratic Party, even in the Republican primary, we saw, like, Ron DeSantis got all the high dollar donors, and Donald Trump still cleaned Iowa, right? Is this sort of the terminal ending of the idea that money controls elections, right? Donald Trump has now twice beat a Democratic challenger who has been totally bankrolled by all the billionaires, who has had all the celebrities come out in full force. And unlike Hillary 2016, Kamala Harris 2024 ends up $20 million in the hole. DNC having all these layoffs. Is money not enough to win an election?
Money is not enough, but to quote the Wu-Tang Clan, cash rules everything around me, and finances will determine who, at least inside the party, can make it to the national stage. What I look at this problem as being more indicative of is just a sense of groupthink that sort of poisoned Democrats from the get-go this cycle. We heard all the talk about how our economic messaging is going to break through, or maybe Kamala Harris will have a better show of support from Black and Latino men than Joe Biden did. None of that turned out to be true. This is just endemic of a problem within the DNC. They need to clean house and start over so that they can start working on winning some of these future elections. So Tiana, what story is on your mind right now?
This Thanksgiving week, I am thankful for the Senate's role of advice and consent to the president, especially when it comes to cabinet appointments. Alexander Hamilton in Federalist Paper 76 said, quote, that the Senate's veto power is to prevent the appointment of unfit characters, and that the person ultimately appointed must be the object of the president's preference, but perhaps not in the first degree. And in no case did we see this more clearly than with the role of Attorney General. Matt Gaetz, while a Republican and an attorney, was technically qualified for the job. He only had 2 years of law experience, had alienated many of his Senate allies, and is undergoing a controversial House ethics investigation. Trump withdrew his nomination after pressure from the Senate to replace him with Pam Bondi, who served 2 terms as Florida's Attorney General and before that practiced law for 20 years. She's a MAGA loyalist, but she's eminently qualified both in resume and character, and that's what the Senate exists for.
Tiana, I hear what you're saying about checks and balances, and when it comes to the Senate's role in perhaps, curbing the power of the executive, the Trump administration and the Republican Party are in a unique relationship. So do you think new incoming Senate Majority Leader John Thune will be able to keep to his promise not to do recess appointments for those top-level cabinet positions, like an RFK, someone who might have trouble being confirmed at the Senate?
Yes, because I do think the Senate is specifically designed to be immune to the populist pressure of the masses, right? If you look historically speaking, so Merrick Garland, who was a mainstream Democratic Attorney General candidate, he got 70 votes in the Senate. So there was some bipartisan support. Take Xavier Becerra, who, like RFK Jr., is a lawyer with no healthcare experience, eminently unqualified for the job, just a pro-abortion, anti-religious radical that used his post in California to go after religious organizations, and he was only confirmed with 50 votes. So I think there's ample precedent there where the Senate can't veto Trump's agenda, and if Trump would replace someone with the exact same policies, the pursuit should be in terms of the quality of the candidate, both in terms of character and resume. Someone like RFK Jr., I think there's a very obvious reason to say no, because the next person in line, maybe it's a Dr. Vinay Prasad or Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, doctors who correctly challenged the COVIDiocy orthodoxy of the Fauci regime, but have also very real medical qualifications and understand the value of the public health successes of the last 100 years.
Time for Yays and Nays, where we both get to vote on the news of the week.
Morning Joe hosts are only bending the knee to Trump to salvage MSNBC's ratings.
Joe and I went to Mar-a-Lago to meet personally with President-elect Trump.
Oh, this is no. This is easy no for me, and I will tell you why. Let's time travel back for a second. 2016. Donald Trump is viewed as a joke by many in the Republican Party. But where does he really sort of jump towards the forefront? By going on Morning Joe almost every single morning and getting to talk about whatever he wants.
Why did you decide to do it this year when you passed all those other years?
Well, I looked at it, but not very seriously.
Trump and Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski, their relationship goes back decades. And while they may pretend to hate each other in the media, there are some high-class New York media elites. They are friends at the end of the day. And just because the last 4 to 8 years saw, Scarborough and Mika savaging Trump every single broadcast, I don't think this is a relationship that they can't salvage, and it's one that they want to look forward to after Trump is out of office, when he might still be a kingmaker in Republican politics.
Joe and I realize it's time to do something different, and that starts with not only talking about Donald Trump, but also talking with him.
Also, they care about access a great deal, and we have 4 years right now of a Trump administration. This is certainly about more than saving their own ratings.
I mean, I agree with all your caveats. Recall that Donald Trump was with Joe and Mika on a hot mic with Mika, leaking him questions and watching his own primary returns back in 2016 with them. They're Frankenstein, and he's the monster that they in part created. And not just them, but also all of NBC, which explains why Comcast is trying to divorce MSNBC from NBC News, the national brand.
This is a big story,
because remember, Donald Trump in the late 90s was having some real estate issues. He was still a very successful businessman, but he was receding from national celebrity. It was NBC and Jeff Zucker that pulled him off the ash heap of the New York tabloids and turned him into a bona fide national Hollywood celebrity with The Apprentice. Blockbuster ratings, and everyone knew who he was at the time. They knew his predilections for womanizing and perhaps controversial comments. And they were all fine with it. It's only the moment that he became a challenge to Hillary Clinton they decided, whoa, this is beyond the pale. And so with Joe and Mika, it's an incredibly cynical calculus because they understand that NBC and Comcast are right now trying to cover their derrieres in axing MSNBC. One of the NBC executives is quoted as saying that the new MSNBC that spun off from NBC News will be equivalent to a well-funded startup, which is not where a media company wants to be 28 years into its founding. So Joe and Mika, they understand they need to be seen less as partisan, rabid, just comment sections, which is what MSNBC has turned into. And without NBC News, they can't have those national news reporters, those international news reporters, right? War correspondents. MSNBC still needs them to be relevant.
Let us know what you think. Is Morning Joe bending the knee to Trump for cynical reasons, or is there something more at play here?
Now it's time for us to fill in the blank.
Melania Trump will not live full-time at the White House because of blank.
I have a very dumb answer. I'm curious to hear what you have first.
Because the White House and Washington have not been very kind to her.
Yeah.
When she is in Manhattan, she gets to live in Trump Tower. She has, her nice motorcade. She's 100 blocks north of Barron, 50 blocks north of Barron, because he's at NYU. It's a very easy existence for her. Same thing, Mar-a-Lago, right, is literally a walled palace that she can walk around freely. her father is still alive and still, I believe, lives in Trump Tower and lives sometimes at Mar-a-Lago with them. And she's a very family-oriented person. This is not a woman about town. When she was living out in D.C., that was peak TDS. Do you remember the whole news cycle generated around her on an airport tarmac in stilettos? Big secret. Every woman in D.C. wears stilettos. Like, that's not a controversial thing. And yet they eviscerated her for that because how dare you go to an airport tarmac to visit a hurricane in nice shoes as the First Lady of the United States? The Rose Garden redesign that she did, the Christmas decorations. I wouldn't want to come back either.
Yeah.
And you know what? Quite frankly, like, we've expanded every single office of the executive branch so far beyond what the founders intended that, like, the First Lady deciding to just peace out, I am more than okay with. That's better than the current situation of Edith Wilson, Jill Biden running cabinet meetings.
I agree with you for the most part. I think the reason Melania Trump won't be living primarily in D.C. is obvious, right? Like you mentioned, the media has not been kind to her, but also her relationship with Donald Trump isn't at, its high point right now. We had all the stuff about Stormy Daniels. We had the E. Jean Carroll saga, Trump's, proclivities to philander a little bit. It can't be easy for her to have that out in the open, and then she's supposed to go around and perform all of the public duties of a first lady on top of a hostile media trying to get her for anything she chooses to wear from a wardrobe standpoint. It's incredibly obvious. Also, like you mentioned, she's incredibly family-oriented. Barron Trump, going to be a freshman. Actually, I guess he's a freshman right now, right, at NYU. She wants to be close to Barron. I expect the only time she's really back here in D.C. will be for when Barron is visiting over vacations, whether it's summer or Christmas break or something like that. I also really do want to see her design another White House Christmas function. Like, say what you want. It kind of looked like the White Queen from the Chronicles of Narnia, but at least it was different, right? It was cool.
Everything about Melania, we did not deserve her in a legitimate media that wasn't just constantly embarrassing themselves. She would have done multiple Vogue covers, right?
Like, oh, yeah.
The woman was an actual, high-powered model.
She was a supermodel.
Yeah, I mean, she was a supermodel. Yeah. She knew fashion, and she also used fashion as diplomacy to great effect, right? Like, Americans always love to do the wear America everywhere they go in the world. She did quite a good job of wearing the designers for the countries that she was visiting. Just one thing about the relationship between the president and the first lady. I found her statement after the first Trump assassination attempt it was very charming and very heartwarming. And you do get the sense that I don't think anyone would describe Donald Trump as the paragon of marital fidelity, but there is clearly a mutual respect and camaraderie. And I think it was really evidenced by when Melania came out as pro-choice during his campaign. He said, I respect her right to her own opinion. Yeah. She's allowed to have it. You're not voting for her, you're voting for me. And I think many more couples would be serviced by that feeling of you are entitled to your own opinion.
Sounds like partners need to look at each other and tell them, be best. On to our last laugh, where we bring you some of the lighter stories in politics this week. Monday, Joe Biden made history. We'd heard a lot about how he's going to give these final pardons and commutations. He delivered. Wasn't for Hunter, but it was for these turkeys.
Based on your temperament and commitment to being productive members of society, I hereby pardon Peach and Blossom.
I think it's important that he actually showed up and remembered and didn't just wander off into the Amazon rainforest.
Kicking a man while he's down. Come on.
I'm sorry. I can't help but wonder, Kamala Harris is off vacationing, God knows wherever. Joe Biden is not with it. Who is president? We have to face facts that, still for the next month and a half, our president is 3 midgets in a trench coat named Ashley, Anthony, and Annie Tomasini, right? No, these are literally the names of the Biden advisors that wouldn't let the cabinet members or House Democrats talk to him for the last 4 years.
I do want to take a step back for a second, and I'm probably going to get crushed by the audience for this, but things like the turkey pardon and the Christmas tree lighting ceremony, these are some of the most magical times in D.C., and I think
absolutely.
We should do better as a country of trying to go into these, taking the political blinders off and just say, hey, we're all Americans, we're all celebrating the holidays, let's talk about what brings us together than what separates us, right?
I think there's good virtue to that.
Everybody ready? Let's count this down together.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go.
Yeah, okay.
I think other people are celebrating the presidency, but not Joe Biden.
Definitely not Joe Biden.
Finally, after 8 years of being sort of in the wilderness of pop culture, Donald Trump, once a celebrity, seems to be back embraced by celebrities.
Oh yeah, it's huge. Nick Bosa, standout defensive end for the San Francisco 49ers. He is a very vocal Trump supporter. He actually got fined by the NFL earlier this year for wearing a MAGA hat on the post-game broadcast. And he's, got all these players, both in the pros and college, doing a little signature Trump celebration
Trump
after sacks.
That time gets beaten by Sealer to the inside. We'll check the flag here.
Zadarius Smith with a sack.
It's funny. Imagine saying, after January 6th, 2021, that anyone famous would have the permission structure to be publicly, pro-Trump. It's weird. The dam just broke.
Yeah.
It's that the taboo over even saying he was not Hitler or not a fascist is completely broken. And it's part of why he won. It's part of how he got record numbers in Manhattan, 20-point shift in California. And that's why the Trump dance is back.
Elections have consequences, and not just political, apparently in pop culture too.
He did the Trump dance.
Let us know who you think won this week's clash. And in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe, visit thewashingtonexaminer.com. I'm Tiana Lowe Doescher.
And I'm Christian Datoc.
And we'll see you on Deadline next week. Until then.
I'm not going to do it. I already did it once.
You don't
I'm
want to?
not going to do it.
You're not feeling it? You're not feeling the MAGA?
I can't stop. It's so much fun.
It's a good dance.